Welcome again, everyone, to our webinar today, Get in Step with Office 365 Performance Monitoring webinar. As a reminder, your questions will be answered at the end of the webinar as time allows, and the rest will be emailed to you. All attendees will be muted. Today's speakers are Tim Book, who's a Technical Sales Manager at GSX, as well as myself, Sonali Shah, Sales Engineer, also at GSX. So the objective of today is to give you visibility and control over the Office 365 cloud services. First, we'll focus on the context, which will give you background on fears and misconceptions admins have about Office 365. We'll then address those concerns that you have. And next, we'll be able to underline the importance of baselining and collecting data. We'll then show you what tools are available to you on the Microsoft portal. Then we can introduce you to GSX's end-to-end monitoring solutions to measure all layers of your Office 365 infrastructure. Finally, Tim will do a demo of our new Gizmo web interface and robot users, which monitors service delivery from a user standpoint. Here are those Office 365 fears and misconceptions versus the reality that I was talking about. First, there's a fear that there might not be visibility, that Office 365 is a black box that gives you zero overview of its infrastructure. But really, there are tools to help you with this visibility. A second question that's asked, as an admin, am I really responsible for users unable to access the Office 365 portal? But really, the answer is yes. Admins will still be held responsible for service delivery in terms of performance and availability. A third misconception is that the Microsoft Office 365 data center isn't secure because it's not on-premise. But in reality, it is the epitome of secure when Microsoft has huge data centers with such expensive, resilient resources that are protecting your environment. And there are a lot of additional security solutions on the market that are going to fit your needs. A fourth fear is that there's limited compatibility of your existing applications on the Office 365 architecture. But really, you can use hybrid infrastructure to maintain a balance of these existing apps. Another fear is, will there be poor performance because it's off my network and it's going to be slow? Well, performance can be great, and we'll show you how, when it's properly measured and analyzed to be improved, you just need to baseline latency and collect metrics to improve positively. And lastly, while 99% uptime guarantee from the Microsoft Data Center is promised, this may not be guaranteed at the location level because service does rely upon multiple layers of your infrastructure. So now that we've given you an outline of the main Office 365 misconceptions, let's talk about how facts and metrics can really help you identify where your latency is coming from. Do you know what good performance looks like? So baselines can help you answer some performance questions. When users complain, you will not have any metrics to really understand the difference between good service quality and unacceptable service quality. So how can we measure this latency coming from Microsoft versus latency that's coming from your infrastructure without collecting data? Here are some critical baselines you should have. For example, the time from your client computer to your egress point, which is the last point in your network, or the time from your egress point to the Office 365 portal, the location of your server that resolves the URLs for Office 365, or the speed of your ISP's DNS resolution time, the packet loss time, the upload and download times. These are just some of the stats that we've collected that are really critical to understand your service quality. Now I'm going to pass it off to Tim to explain to you the Microsoft tools you have available to you.
Thanks, Sonali, and good morning, everybody. Like Sonali mentioned, I'm just going to talk here a little bit about the tools that are available either through Microsoft, maybe your own kinds of scripts or things that you might like to write, or some third-party tools that are available to help start giving you this information. Really, as administrators, we need to be cognizant and aware about gathering this kind of information and baselining like we had mentioned. You can't really know where you're going to be going unless you know where the environment has been, how it's performing, and give yourself a baseline to measure against. So we'll start here with a couple of Microsoft tools. There's obviously the portal located at portal.office.com. It could be accessed from any browser there. There's a lot of information that's available, information about global incidents, incidents related to your tenant itself, license information, and there is some limited reporting capability inside of there too. I don't know if anybody's been able to play around with the newer versions of it, but they've gotten some new features inside of there that have really helped administrators to grab some information that wasn't previously available. There are also some remote connectivity tools here that you can use to help start gathering some information about the actual service being delivered. So the Microsoft RCA, or Remote Connectivity Analyzer, it's a cloud-based solution. It's got some configuration and connectivity checks that you can do inside of there. It's very, very simple to run. You really just open it up inside of a browser at the location that you'd like to do this at, and it'll give you some metrics and some tests about things like availability of services and auto-discover and some network information and things like that. We've actually got a couple of screenshots here on the right-hand side about the two different tools here. There's also the Support and Recovery Assistant for Office 365. This is a client-based solution, so you would actually download a little program or applet on a client machine at the network location and do some connectivity and performance checks like that. So the RCA would be a cloud-based solution that would be in your browser that would go from that particular, from the cloud actually, just doing general type checks, whereas the RCA tool, that's going to be a client-based solution that's going to really look at what it looks like at the end user, the end point that the customer is experiencing or the user experiencing your service from. We take a little bit more into the Support Recovery Assistant here. Some nice things, wizard-driven, that gives you the ability to look at different points, different problems you might be having in the environment. So it gives you a little troubleshooting guide here. What are you having a problem with? Office setup itself, Outlook, mobile devices, Outlook on the web, and it goes through some of the testing and some of the connectivity checks that it'll do to see if there's a problem with the intermediate network, with an endpoint you're trying to reach. Take a look at some of the performance metrics too here, so you can see things like latency and ping times and traceroute information, all good things that'll not just say, is Office 365 available? From a service bulletin perspective, Microsoft hasn't posted any issues or any global outages either with your tenant or with Office 365 as a whole. But what does the network look like in between? What do the endpoints look like going out from your egress point from your network to Office 365? So some good tools here from Microsoft that you can use to gather some of that information. There's always our all-trusty command line, PowerShell here. So lots of different native commandlets, either on the Exchange side of things, on the Windows side of things, and like I mentioned, some third-party tools that are available to start getting some information, and also not only gathering the information, but start building some rudimentary reports here that you can use to kind of analyze and report on this information. So there's your basic commandlets here: test net connection, test MEPI connectivity, not only testing network and port availability, but also some Outlook-specific protocols and services as well. There's different ones for, the client access, for auto-discover, for MEPI connections, a whole bunch of different commandlets inside the EMC there. So you got your basic ping and trace route to give you some information on the network and all the hops in between. Again, it's a service that we're delivering to our users, so 365 can be available, but what does that performance look like if they've got a less than optimal connection at a remote office or at their own location that they're at? The experience that they're going to have, the service being delivered to them, is going to be degraded in their eyes. They don't really care so much about what's causing that or why it's happening. It's a matter of, well, things are slow. I can't access certain applications. My email is not loading fast, things like that. And then, like I mentioned, there's some newer tools that have been developed by third parties, also with Microsoft. There's some tools available on TechNet as well to give you some more advanced kind of metrics and information inside of here. So things like PS Ping, part of the SysInternal tools package, you can download off of TechNet, and trace TCP too. So rather than just your basic network connection, is this port open, pinging the endpoint and making sure things are available, these will give you some more advanced metrics here, and some reporting capabilities as well. So using the PowerShell kind of framework, you can start building some of these rudimentary reports that I was talking about. So in conclusion, there's PowerShell scripting to create reports and send them and export them. There's some native tools from Microsoft that's going to give you some visibility into the environment. They're going to help you get started giving those basic information and reports that you can start creating here to give you an idea of what's been going on in the environment, what it actually looks like to your users. But there's some drawbacks to that and some limitations you have to think about. It does take time to configure these things. Some of them are kind of simple. Some of them are going to take a little bit of time depending upon what kind of information you want to get out of them and how deep you want to go. They need to be maintained too. So you've got to have somebody there writing the information or writing the scripts, gathering the information, maintaining these things when something changes in PowerShell, for example, or something changes in Office 365, either in your tenant or at a global level, that requires you to gather the information you were getting in a different way. Then you've got to actually think about how to write this information, how to write the reporting. There's probably more readily available tools and pieces of code, commandlets and whatnot that will get information for you, but processing that information, getting it into a, let's say, human readable format or a reportable format where you can start trending and seeing the evolution over time, that's not as easily done, and that requires a little bit of work there on your side. And again, somebody's got to do that and somebody's got to maintain that information as well. So basically, we're looking to see here, do you need an easier and better way to be able to do this? So hope that's been a lot of information you can get, or I've given you a lot of information that you can use to start getting this information. But as we'll see here, we've got some solutions here at GSX that can help automate this process to help get you some better reporting and really give you some more deeper insight into not only your cloud infrastructure, but also maybe any on-prem services and servers that you might have in the environment as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Sonali, who's going to give us a brief introduction on GSX solutions.
Thanks, Tim. So just like Tim said, we're a software company that provides tools for large enterprises since 1996, really specialized in monitoring and reporting, focused in unified communications. I'm here in the Boston office while our headquarters is in Geneva, Switzerland, and we have 600 customers in over 40 countries. Here are some of those references that we have. We do range from a lot of different industries. So you see consulting and IT services, financial services, healthcare, and you can see that they're medium to large enterprises with pretty complex infrastructures. And they've trusted us with their monitoring tools to improve their service delivery. So I'm going to turn it back over to Tim, who will give you an idea of our end-to-end real-time monitoring solutions.
Thanks again, Sonali. So just to give you a little bit of an introduction into some of our solutions and some of our methodologies and our philosophies here. So we are an agentless end-to-end real-time monitoring solution. We're going to be monitoring every layer of the infrastructure involved in the 365 service delivery. So I keep saying that over and over again, but it's a very important thing to remember. It's not just the Office 365 tenant. It's not just the application that's being served by there. There's all these different layers, all these different pieces of infrastructure, network segments, different services, application servers, whatever they may be, that are involved in the delivery of the service to your end users. Again, they don't really care so much about whose problem it is, where it lies, whose fault it is, what even is exactly causing it. They care about the service being delivered themselves. 365 services, Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Skype for Business, Power BI, whatever it may be. Those are the things that they care about, and again, they don't really care about why it's not working. They want to know that it's working. So what are we able to do with our solutions here? You can install these at these critical locations what we call end user robot users. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth here, but these are our probes that are out in your environment that are going to be monitoring this entire infrastructure, every layer up to 365. So each individual critical network location can have one of these robot users and be monitoring things like network latency, routers and switches information, different network segment information, all the different layers in between that. Intermediary devices like load balancers and your firewalls, things at the OS layer as well. So Windows Service Monitoring, SQL Server Monitoring, things at the application layer. So different applications that are involved in the service delivery. There's not just things that are involved just on the 365 perspective, Exchange, right? The things that are involved in delivering that service, Active Directory, Azure AD Connect, proxy server information, other MDM solutions that are managing access to your company's information, load balancers here, as you can see. So there's lots of different moving parts that are all involved, again, ultimately delivering this service to your end users here. And GSX is an end-to-end real-time monitoring solution for that, to be able to give you some insight, to alert you to problems, and also provide some reporting and historical analysis to measure that true end-user performance to your critical locations. And here we'll talk a little bit more about the robot users themselves. These are, again, probes that are installed out in your critical network locations that are going to be performing all of these end-user scenarios. These are simulating end-user connections, application usage, whatever it may be, just like your users would from their locations. It's going to gather, collate, summarize all this information, alert you to potential problems when they reach certain thresholds or services are not available, tell you which services are not available, network layer, SQL server down, tenant service outage bulletin posted inside of 365, all of this information consolidated into one dashboard as well, providing a one-stop shop as far as the service delivery to your end users here. And then now let's talk a little bit about that real-time service delivery monitoring. So like I had mentioned, there are end user scenarios that are simulating what your users are doing in the environments, giving you an idea of what it truly looks like to them. You can install the GSX robot users anywhere. It's a very, very small installation file. The management of itself doesn't take very long to maintain once everything is set up. Everything is centrally managed as well. So from one dashboard, you can control all of the different robot users for 365 and have them have some smart alerting as well, where they'll be able to coordinate with each other to let you know that, for example, we're having a problem in the Boston office, or we're having a problem in the Nice office, or in the Geneva office, wherever it may be, and then alert you to where those problems, where the users are experiencing the latency or even a service outage. Very, very powerful and customizable alerting system as well. So you can pick different alert profiles and destinations for different types of teams, different types of alerts, different times. You can have sort of a follow the sun support methodology if you implement that, inside your business, where you can have them going to different locations based upon time. We do also integrate with other enterprise management tools as well. There's a management pack for SCOM, there's SNMP traps that are available. So if there is an investment in other technologies in the environment, we do complement those as well, and we can augment them and actually provide a little bit more information because we're really focused on the application layer, the service being delivered, versus like an infrastructure tool that would talk about ports that are open and services and things like that. And then one of the big advantages as well is being able to test both the cloud and the on-premise application and servers. Very, very critical, especially with many, many companies. A lot of our customers we know specifically are still in a hybrid mode, wanting to get to the cloud either fully or just because of legacy reasons that we had mentioned before, they're not actually able to move full cloud. GSX is going to be able to monitor and report on both the cloud and the on-premise infrastructure. So here we've got a little introduction to our centralized dashboard for all your different services. You'll be able to see the entire messaging and collaboration environment in one single dashboard, which is very, very critical. A lot of admins, even the management type people, want to see one pane of glass to be able to see all this different infrastructure, drill down exactly to what my issue is and what are the numbers and metrics that are associated with it. We can control all the robot users at the same time that I had mentioned. Very easy to drill down into the information that we actually want to grab right away and see what are my critical alerts, what are my critical services that are out or experiencing some sort of latency. And then we've also got graphing capabilities and reporting to be able to present this information to you. So what I'd like to do now is go through a quick demo of the GSX Gizmo and robot user experience. We'll show the dashboard here, introduce it for anybody who hasn't seen it for the first time, kind of play around with it a little bit, and then we'll wrap up with our presentation here. So I will switch over to our Gizmo database here. This is the GSX robots, or the GSX Gizmo interface here. If you haven't seen this before, this is the centralized pane of glass that I was mentioning that has all of my different robot user information, all of my different services that are available, both for 365, related services, on-premise infrastructure, anything that GSX can monitor all in one pane of glass here. It's a web-based application. You just load this up inside of your browser. Very, very modern interface here, mobile-friendly, so I can really drill down into the information that I want to be able to see right away. Looking at this pane of glass here, I can quickly see that I've got some information or some issues with certain servers or scenarios that we're performing. I can see all my servers that are within spec or within threshold that I've set. And I can also filter this information. So if I go up top here, I can drill down right into my critical alerts here. Which servers am I having problems with? Which locations am I having problems with? Same kind of idea for my warning or degraded thresholds and everything that's looking good here. It's really easy to set these filters. And one of the main objectives that we wanted to do here, and let me just take a moment here to talk about just the work that had been poured in here by the product management team and the development team. It's been a very long process to get the product up to the state you see here. So it's been a very, very excellent job there on our development team side. But they've really given us the capability to be able to customize everything here that you see just the way you want, not just presenting it in the way that we think you should be looking at it. We do have some default views here and some default cards, templates that you'll see inside of here, but you're able to drill down and set it up just like you want here. So I have a lot of filters and different status options that I can set here. So I can basically create my dashboard the way I want based upon all the information available. And I'll talk about these a little bit more in depth here. But I can create the database, create the design just the way I want, set it as a dashboard, and then I've got, for instance, my location view. So if I go inside of here, I've got one centralized location for all my different robot users that I have deployed throughout the world. So I've got here some in France, over in Atlanta, New York, Paris, Tokyo, and we've got a couple here that don't have a location set. We've just been messing with our database. But these are all of the robot users deployed and all the different scenarios that they're performing, services that they're monitoring, all the information that they're gathering, all being reported here right into the dashboard. So I have a view here that shows me what it looks like from each critical network location, each user's perspective. I've also got a service view here that I've created, for example. So I've organized all the different server monitors, the different tests that I'm doing by a service. So I've created an authentication dashboard. If I drill down to my authentication, I've got all my services and tests related to Active Directory, ADFS, and ADFX proxy information. There's also DirSync and Azure AD Connect that we don't have in this particular dashboard, but I can centralize that into one location and see my services as they relate to all the different tests that I have here. Content management systems, instant messaging, SharePoint, or no service associated. So you can see how it's very easy to organize this as a personal preference, to organize it along team lines, reporting lines, geographic locations, types of servers, colors if you really wanted to. I mean, the point here is that it's very, very flexible and customizable. So I can drill down into that and get exactly to where I want to be. Now, we've talked about Office 365 extensively today, so we've actually created a 365 dashboard that has grabbed all the different tagged information for the services, servers, and tests that we're doing related to the 365 platform. So we're actually scanning as a whole the entire suite, Skype for Business, Exchange Online, some ADFS, proxy information, and SharePoint Online here. So let's take a look at some of the information that's available that's being gathered by these robot users. Let me drill down into Exchange Online here, for example. It's going to give me all the different components, all the different tests that make up the Exchange Online user experience. So we have different tests that are related to network type information and end user scenarios that are going to gather some information about the different types of scenarios that users perform in the environment. I can drill down into the network component here. I can see all the tests they're doing and their statuses about what is happening in the environment as it relates to the network here. So some ping information, packet loss, round trip, port information. Here I can see that there's a DNS resolution test that I'm performing, but it's exceeded the threshold that I have specified. So what I've done with Gizmo here and the robot users is that I have established my baseline here. I've said I've scanned this test and I've created this scenario for X amount of weeks, months, whatever it might be, and I've established that my baseline is about 50 milliseconds is what my average is. So I set an alert on there, and I set a threshold that says if it's over X amount, in this case 50 milliseconds, I can set an alert. I can have a different customized alert here for emails and SNMP traps and launch programs and things like that. But I also see it inside of the dashboard here, and I can drill down into that and see exactly what's going on in the environment. Very, very nice and critical here. I've got some latest information about the different scans that I'm doing here, and then I've got my statistics and my graphs related to this information. So here I am graphing a couple of our scenarios that we do here. From the end user location, from where the robot user is installed, resolving usernames, downloading attachments, logging into 365, sending email, uploading documents to SharePoint. These are all scenarios that we perform because these are things that users are doing, right? You can say, again, 365 is available. There's no dashboard incidents that are posted inside of the portal. Microsoft says not 5 nines or 100% uptime. But that doesn't mean your end users are getting that same experience. Where are they getting the same experience, and also why are they not getting that experience? Is it on the Microsoft side? Is it on your network? Is it a problem with authentication and Active Directory? Is it an application issue and you know, an SQL server is highly utilized and not able to serve the information that your applications are using in SharePoint? You know, I'm just making up scenarios here, but that's the kind of information you can get using this dashboard here. So I've got the user scenarios, DNS resolution, packet loss information. It's very easy to drill down into the information, look at the time periods here, all my different data points that I have, and see the evolution and the trending of this information here. Everything is customizable as well. Like I mentioned before, we have what we call these basic cards here that just are things that we thought would be nice, but you can drag these around, move these around, add different statistics, add different graphs here, create your own customized dashboard and experience. Now, if I hop back out to my 365 view, and we'll go over here to SharePoint Online, for example. One of our newest monitors, connectors that we call them, that have been published very, very recently, the SharePoint Online end user experience. Similar kind of concept to Exchange Online, different network components. There's different intermediary devices that you could be checking, authentication and proxy information, load balancer, stuff like that too as well. But here we've got that basic network information. Everything seems to be within spec that we've had associated with it. If we go back into our user scenarios, and you can see the different kinds of scenarios that we're doing here again. User scenarios, login, upload a document, download a document. There's creating a site and using search services and Excel services. So again, from these locations, I can see what it looks like from an end user perspective, which is very, very critical. Again, I can't say it enough here, and it sounds like I'm repeating myself, but if you don't establish those baselines, if you don't know what your normal environment looks like, you can't tell if there's been a change in the environment. You can't tell if service is degraded. Having this information and knowing about it ahead of time is way better than customers or end users calling and saying, everything's not working, everything's slow. Even if it's a perception problem, even if it is not your issue, if it's on the network side, they're at a remote location that has a really poor connection. Having this information, it arms you with the information you need to be able to do this. Okay. So that is our GSX Gizmo here in a nutshell. The biggest things I can say is about the robot users here, being able to customize where everything comes from, to deploy what it looks like from the network location, customized views and information, reporting, long-term training and analysis. It's really about, as administrators, gathering this information, having some insight into the environment. I always describe it when I talk to a lot of our customers here and do presentations and whatnot. We have the ability to alert on an issue and let somebody know that there's been something wrong or something has gone down. But reacting to that is very, very different than proactively looking at the environment, measuring what things are going on in the environment, and really getting an idea of what performance looks like and getting ahead of problems before they become a poor end user experience. Okay, and we have a lot more information we can show here, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to turn it back over to Sonali here, who's going to kind of summarize a lot of the information we talked about here, and then we'll leave some room at the end, hopefully, for some questions to go over. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Sonali.
Thanks, Tim. That was really, really great. So what I'm going to do is conclude the monitoring section by explaining how, of course, it comes down to the end user satisfaction. So first, we can test the service as a user would. We can troubleshoot latency and pinpoint where issues are coming from. And GSX has that centralized dashboard for incidents taking place on the Office 365 portal. But you can also ultimately monitors the entire cloud infrastructure that impacts the Office 365 delivery while you're comparing multiple critical locations at the same time. You're also going to be collecting alerts on critical statistics and get the full picture of monitoring everything that's really impacting your end user experience. So now that you've seen how important it is and how you can enhance your Office 365 end user satisfaction, let me now give you an overview of the rest of our Office 365 offerings. Next slide there. Thank you. So here's a kind of overview of our offerings. They're split into 4 areas that we've targeted to give you a complete picture. So in the blue section, we've already gone over the performance monitoring, how important it is to test services with end user scenarios, use robot users to compare multiple locations, detect bottlenecks, and really troubleshoot through these network latency diagnostics. We also have in the orange section a product called GSX 365 Usage. This involves reporting on license management, growth, traffic, and this is really going to help you understand how users are accessing your platforms. In the pink section, we have our professional services. That's centered around migration assessments, defining performance baselines, and optimizing service quality. In the green section, we have our 365 Enterprise Management product. This is where you can take action on a large number of users, group actions, restrict admin rights, and really track changes. This is very, very key for help desks that are delegating admin access. So that kind of concludes our webinar on Office 365 performance monitoring. We're now going to answer some questions that you've asked. So the first question I have here is, can you run the support and recovery tool from a remote location? It's going to be directed towards you, Tim.
Sure, great question. You said the support and recovery tool, right?
Mm-hmm. From a remote location.
Yep. So there's 2 different parts of that, remember. There's the one that you can run the browser-based kind of test that gives you some general information, general availability. But there is the recovery tool that you can download to a client location. So a lot of times, if you were to talk to certain help desks or like Microsoft directly, if they were doing your support, they would download or direct you to download this little program or application onto the computer that's affected or experiencing that problem. And it would run those connectivity tests, those availability tests from there to give you an idea of what it looks like. Very, very similar concept to the robot user that we have that is doing the same thing from your user's network location. So, yep, you can definitely do that remotely.
Great, great. Next question I have for you is, when will AirWatch be released?
So the AirWatch platform, as well as some other MDM solutions, are slated to be released in Q1 of 2017. So that's a very flexible date, as you know, January, February, March. We're hoping, I think it's going to be right around the middle or end of Q1 is what the last development update that I had. But if anybody had any specific questions about that or wanted to, be on the list to be notified about that, just feel free to reach out to us on the contact information you'll see at the end, and we can definitely make sure we notify you.
Third question I have is, well, we've gone over Office 365 monitoring. What about on-prem servers? Can GSX monitor those?
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the biggest advantages of the tool there. So a lot, if not all of the different things that I talked about are going to be replicated inside the on-prem environment. Then also, obviously, things like system-level stats and services and things like that. So in the cloud, there's no concept of CPU monitoring or disk or DAG availability. We have service-based testing for the 365. But if you were to monitor with GSX, we would have all that information, creating scenarios like a user would from robot users, but also that infrastructure level information, high availability, DAG, CAS, things like that. So, yep, definitely support both of them for many of the platforms too, Skype for Business, the Link servers, and then also SharePoint as well.
Good, good, good. So actually the only last question I have time for is, Now, what permissions are required to use the tools that have been mentioned so far?
Depends upon which tool you're looking at there. For the portal itself and the service help dashboard, you got to be just got to be an admin to be able to do that. For different commands that we had gone over, like the PowerShell command list and whatnot, obviously you're going to be need to be able to run those on the computer that you're using. So to be able to run scripts and everything, if you're going to build those, you got to have the right PowerShell permissions, have the right execution policy enabled, and things like that. Then obviously permission to the endpoint that you're going to be monitoring. So pinging it, you know, ICMP port. I forgot the port number offhand, but the port being available if you're going to test like web availability, port 80, et cetera, et cetera. So depends upon the exact testing there. As far as like GSX is concerned, there's different documentation that we can provide and like quick start guides that we can give that will let you know all the different permissions, all the different setup things that you need to be able to do to install the robot users. It's very, very simple, and our team has done a really good job on outlining that. So,
thank you for your time today. Thanks, Tim, for going over these questions. We're really running out of time. So the last thing I want to say is happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and please, please, please take 2 minutes to fill out our survey after this webinar. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon again. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Very, very much appreciate it.